Hello, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Packers Game Day, Packers Vikings, noon football, NFC North, rivalry. I know it's a very good team in the Green Bay Packers against a not so good team in the Minnesota Vikings, and there's always a level of trepidation when you're supposed to win the game and supposed to win it somewhat easily, but I'm really excited for this football game. I think it's going to be very entertaining. I think Green Bay has the ability to kind of take care of business in this one, and today I'm going to be going through my top 3 keys to the game as I do every Sunday prior to game day. And let me start off right away by going over my first key to the game, and that is targeting somebody other than Davante Adams, somebody not number 17, somebody that is not one of the best wide receivers in football, because I can tell you right now, Mike Zimmer, if he does one thing in this game, I guarantee you it is going to be to make sure that Davante Adams does not beat them. And 2 reasons for this. Well, maybe 3. The first being it's the most obvious thing to do if you are a defensive coordinator in any way, shape, or form in this game. Number 2, Mike Zimmer got a front row seat to exactly what Davante Adams was able to do. The game that Davante just had against the Houston Texans was not that dissimilar to what Davante did to Minnesota, both just aesthetically and statistically against the Vikings in week 1. He tore them apart. The Vikings decided to focus on Aaron Jones in the running game more than Davante Adams in the passing game. That turns out was a mistake, and Davante Adams tore them completely apart. And the first thing is he knows that he's gonna remember that. They're gonna watch the tape of that again, and they're gonna make sure that Davante Adams is double covered, and they're gonna take him out of this football game. Number 2, if you're not watching your own tape, I guarantee you you're watching recent tape. Well, what did Davante Adams just do a week ago against the Houston Texans when Houston decided not to double cover him? He ate them alive. And oh, by the way, yes, the Houston Texans corners with Phillip Gaines and Vernon Hargreaves were very, very bad. The Vikings are going to be worse because of all their injuries. So you can't do the same thing that Houston did. You can't just use your normal game plan. If you go single man-to-man coverage in this game or single coverage period on Davante Adams, you are going to be in for a world of hurt. It's just not going to work. So 1A this week, you might as well be putting a laser pointer on Davante Adams before every single snap. The Vikings might as well not even try to disguise it. They might as well just put 2 corners right on Davante Adams, jam him at the line, and just tell the Packers pre-snap he's not getting the football, because that I really feel, not to that extent, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here, but they are going to try to shut him down, because with no Aaron Jones and with the wide receivers not named Davante Adams catching a total of 2 passes for 6 yards against the Houston Texans, I just guarantee you Mike Zimmer is going to go into this game trying to take him away. Mike Zimmer doesn't have the horses to compete on defense in this game. He doesn't have the edge rushers. He doesn't have the run stoppers. He doesn't have the cornerbacks. He doesn't have the pieces to be successful in this game. So he has to try something. He has to take Green Bay's best player out of this game and make anyone else beat them, because if you let Davante Adams versus Jeff Gladney be the matchup that you're going to die on, you're going to die. But if you make it Malik Taylor versus a 3rd or 4th string corner, or Darius Shepard versus a 4th or 5th string corner, you have a chance to win that matchup. If you have it where it's Eric Kendricks versus Robert Tonyan, you have the ability to win that matchup. If it's Jamal Williams, running up against this Vikings run defense, you've got a chance to win that game. The only way that you legitimately can't, win is if you allow Davante Adams to go out and have the game that he had a week ago, or that he had against you, meaning the Minnesota Vikings, in week 1. You have to let everyone else beat you besides him. So I think that's number 1A in this game, is how do the Minnesota Vikings try to take out Davante Adams? And then 2, how does Green Bay pick up the pieces? Who steps up? Is Allen Lazard active? Because if he is, that changes things a bit, because now Green Bay has another mismatch. Can MVS step up, right? Can any of the other receivers? Can Equanimeous St. Brown make an impact? Matt LaFleur mentioned that we might see more of Equanimeous St. Brown this week. Is Tyler Ervin active? Can he be somebody that changes the pace a little bit? Can Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon get going? Can some of the tight ends get going? I think that's 1A in this game, because you know Mike Zimmer has got a target on Davante Adams this week. Number 2, maybe this is broad, and I usually maybe have a little bit of a cheap one every week if I'm being honest, if I'm being fair, and maybe this is a cheap one, but I also believe it to be legitimately true. It's just the variables in this game, the weird, odd variables, and that starts with the wind. It is supposed to be a massively windy day in Green Bay, which could change everything. It could change Kirk Cousins throwing down the field. Aaron Rodgers should be okay. The kicking game, the punting game, your decisions that you make throughout the course of this game, all of it is altered because of a potentially very windy day at Lambeau. The winds can swirl. It's really tough for visiting teams to kind of judge the wind. As Aaron Rodgers has mentioned multiple times, the flags in the stadium don't tell the story. So you have to really kind of gauge all of that and take it all into consideration. It gives a benefit to the Packers because they're familiar with Lambeau. But to tag on to that, the other big variable in this game is really the Packers special teams. Jim Ozarski mentioned that Hunter Bradley's fighting through a groin injury. Of course, Mason Crosby may or may not play. They may have to pick up a rookie kicker and have him kick in this game. So there's a ton of variables on special teams as well, which could cause Matt LaFleur to make different decisions of whether or not to go for it on fourth down, maybe go for 2 instead of 1 in certain circumstances. All of those are huge key variables in this game, along with just your normal ones. Who gets injured, who's available, who's not available, those sort of things. I think Green Bay has to be very cognizant of the variables in this game and how they're controlling each of those, because on an even playing field with no wind and with no weird special teams injuries and everything normal, this is a win for Green Bay more often than not, right? But it's those weird variables that can play a part. I look back to the Packers 13-3 season where they lost to the Giants in the NFC Championship game at Lambeau Field. Go back to like week 14, 15, somewhere in there. They had a game. They only had 2 losses on the season. They had a game in Chicago against a far inferior Chicago Bears team. The winds were so bad that day, you legitimately couldn't throw the football. It was just that both teams handing off all game. Green Bay, if you remember, it was James Starks and John Kuhn, and they just didn't have the horses at running back. It was a huge advantage to the Bears, even though they were a way worse team, because they were a better running team and they were better set up against the run to stop the run. So in this weird vacuum with all those weird variables, the Bears were actually the better team on that day because all those other things played a part. So Green Bay's got to be very careful. I don't think it's going to be quite that windy where you can't throw the football, but Green Bay's got to be careful that some of those variables don't come into play and that you just make sure that the better team comes out of this game with the win, and the Packers, can get out of this one with a win without having to worry about some of those other things. Number 3, I think you have to make Kirk Cousins beat you in this game, especially with those windy conditions that I just mentioned. And to tag on to that, you need to weaponize Jaire Alexander in this game. And what do I mean by that? You need to put Jaire Alexander wherever the Vikings' biggest strength is. So if Adam Thielen starts out as the biggest strength, make sure he's on Adam Thielen. If Justin Jefferson gets going, make sure he goes over to Justin Jefferson. Who's ever feeling it, who's ever having that big game, put Jaire Alexander on it. Or if your analytics say, you know what, Kirk Cousins really likes throwing to the strong side of the field, meaning that there's more space over there, then make sure that you're playing Jaire Alexander on the strong side of the field. Or if, he really likes throwing to a certain route or space on the field on third downs, whatever, put Jaire Alexander in the position to be successful, where it takes away Kirk Cousins' strengths and it doesn't allow some of those wide receivers to get into a rhythm, because Jaire is probably going to shut them down. So again, whether that's Thielen, whether that's Jefferson, whether that's an area of the field, whether it's a situational thing, weaponize Jaire Alexander. And again, most importantly, don't let Dalvin Cook or these running backs beat you. Again, especially with the weather, the way that it might be. Make Kirk Cousins beat you in windy conditions. He's throwing interceptions all over the field this year. And I know that they still have weapons in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, but I like my chances a lot more if I'm the Packers if you make Kirk Cousins beat me than I do if Dalvin Cook is healthy and Alexander Madison's healthy and those guys are able to go up and rack up big yards and you can't stop the run. Now play actions in play. It makes things easier on Kirk Cousins. All of a sudden Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen are getting deep down the field. You just don't want those situations. So take care of Dalvin Cook, take care of the running game, and make Kirk Cousins beat you. Get some pressure on him, and that's really going to be a huge key to victory. And again, weaponize and use Jaire Alexander in any way, shape, or form possible to take away the best options for Kirk Cousins on any given play. And again, not only make Kirk Cousins beat you, but make him beat you with his second or third option rather than where he wants to go on that individual play. That's going to do it for me as far as my prediction. I like Packers by double digits in this game. I think this is a really great matchup for Green Bay. I don't think they're going to be looking ahead to San Francisco. I think they're going to take care of business at Lambeau. I think they're going to enjoy being home. I know no fans, but I still think it's going to be just kind of the comfort of not having to travel and playing within the friendly confines of Lambeau Field. I hope you enjoyed today's game. It should be a great one. Packers, Vikings, noon football. Again, always love NFC North football at noon. And make sure to check back here tomorrow as I recap the game. Make sure to check out the Pack-A-Day podcast today as we preview this game in a little bit longer format. But until next time, and as always, go Pack, go.